obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining the call, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, Srila Prabhupada Ji ki Jai. This is Niharika from Bloomington.
Hare Krishna Niharika Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Lakshmi Mataji. This is Kaumandaki Dasi from Baltimore. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Guru Maharaj, Prabhupada, and all the people. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Komadika Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Lakshmi Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. This is Radhika from Baltimore.
Hare Krishna Radhika Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Lakshmi Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Guru Maharaj ki Jai. This is Vinita Gandharvika Devidasi from Texas. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Vinita Gandharvika Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Lakshmi Mataji, all glories Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. My humble obeisances to you and all the devotees. This is Krishna Kumari Devidasi from Raleigh.
Hare Krishna Krishna Kumari Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. My humble obeisances to everyone on the call. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. This is Pranita from Ashburn, Virginia.
Hare Krishna Pranita Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. This is Radha Damodar Das and Atma Maya from Austin, Texas. Please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Guru Maharaj. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to all the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Damodar Prabhuji and Atma Maya Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. And thank you so much for joining the call, Prabhuji and Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Lakshmi Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and all glories to Gurudev. This is Radha from Baltimore.
Hare Krishna Radha Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Lakshmi Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Guru Maharaj ki Jai. This is Shamaguri Dasi from Charlotte.
Hare Krishna Shyama Gauri Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Prabhupada. All glories to Guru Maharaj. All glories to assembled devotee. This is Mohini Lakshmi from Detroit.
Hare Krishna Mohini Lakshmi Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Guru Maharaj ki Jai, Praveen Govindas from Charlotte.
Hare Krishna Praveen Govind Prabhuji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining the call, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj and the assembled devotees. This is Dinabandhu Guru Das and Lalita Devi Dasi from Sandy Ridge. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Dinabandhu Prabhuji and Lalita Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining the call, Prabhuji and Mataji. Hare Krishna. Do we have any more introductions at this point before we start the class? So Hare Krishna, welcome to today's Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call. We are extremely fortunate to have His Grace Premras Prabhuji here with us today. And Prabhuji will be enlightening us by walking us through Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 29, and 15, 16, and 17 texts. But before we jump into this nectarine class, I would request His Grace Praveen Govind Prabhuji to please share a brief introduction about His Grace Premras Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. My humble obeisances to all the wonderful devotees on the call. We are honored today to have His Grace Premras Prabhuji. He is a disciple of His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj and a member of the Radha Gopinath Temple, Chowpatty, Bombay. He is a scholarly devotee, an active preacher, and has dedicated his life in distribution of Srila Prabhupada books. He has extensively studied Srila Prabhupada books multiple times and has given classes on Nectar of Instruction, Nectar of Devotion, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. And over the last 3 years, he has been standing among the top 3 Bhagavatam distributors, book distributors over the world. And he has been chanting 16 rounds at one stretch for 8 years in a row and has a master's degree in aerospace engineering from University of Florida. He's a grahastha and he also takes care of his business. So we are very fortunate to have him on the call. Prabhuji, are you there? Could you take it over from here now? Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Are you able to hear?
Yes, Prabhuji, very clearly. Thank you,
Okay.
Prabhu.
And should I turn on my video also?
Sorry, Prabhu.
Not yet.
Should
Okay.
I turn on the video also?
No, Prabhuji, we don't see you.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm asking. Okay, let me just turn on the video.
Yeah.
You can
Now
see
you are
you.
able. Okay. So I'm greatly honored and glad to be a part of this Bhakti Sangha Japa conference. Special gratitude to Her Grace Sham Gauri Mataji and all other devotees also for inviting me. I'm not qualified for anything. Whatever qualities I have, it's only because of the mercy of the great souls, because of my Gurujan. I'm really humbled by the sharing of the introduction, and actually I don't have anything great, but it's because devotees are so merciful. That's why they are just looking for the good qualities in others. So I'm extremely honored. Thank you so much for inviting me. Dandavat Pranam to each and every devotee. Okay, so I just wanted to know, because I am giving class after a long time. So what is the protocol? Like, am I supposed to read the verses?
Yes, Prabhuji. We will share it on the screen.
Okay. So the verse, the translation, and the purport.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. Okay. Start. Can I start reading?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, 29th chapter, text 15. Vaishasham narakampayur libdako andau tu mishrinu hastapadau pumam stabhyam yukto yati karoti cha. Synonyms: Vaishasham, name Vaishasha; Narakam, hell; Payu, the working sense in the rectum; Lubdaka, very greedy; Andhav, blind; to then, me to me; Shrinu, listen; Hasta Padav, hands and legs. I think not able to see the entire screen. Puman, oh yeah, Puman, the living entity; Tabhyam, with them; Yukta, being engaged; Yati, goes; Karoti, works; Cha, and. Translation: when it is said that Puranjan goes to Vaishasha, it is meant that he goes to hell. He is accompanied by Luptaka, which is the working sense in the rectum. Formerly, I have also spoken of 2 blind associates. These associates should be understood to be the hands and legs. Being held by the hands and the legs, the living entity performs all kinds of work and moves hither and thither. Text number 16. Antapuram cha hridayam vishuchirmana uchyate tatra moham prasadam va harsham prapnoti tadgune. Synonyms: Antapuram, private residence, cha, and hridayam, the heart, Visuchi, the servant named Visuchina, Mana, the mind, Uchyate is said, Tatra, there, Moham, illusion, Prasadam, satisfaction, Va, or Harsham, jubilation, Prapnoti, obtains, Tat, of the mind, Gune, by the modes of nature. Translation: The word Antapura refers to the heart. The word Vishuchina, meaning going everywhere, indicates the mind. Within the mind, the living entity enjoys the effects of the modes of material nature. These effects sometimes cause illusion, sometimes satisfaction, and sometimes jubilation. Purport: the mind and intelligence of the living entity in material existence are affected by the modes of material nature, and according to the association of the material modes, the mind is habituated to go here and there. The heart feels satisfaction, jubilation, or illusion according to the effects of the modes of material nature. Actually, the living entity in his material condition remains inert. It is the modes of material nature that act on the mind and heart. The results are enjoyed or suffered by the living entity. This is clearly stated in the Bhagavad Gita, 3rd chapter, 27th verse. Prakrti kriya manani gunu karmani sarvasa ahankara bhimurgata karta miti manyate. The spirit soul, under the influence of three modes of material nature, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by nature. Text 17. Yatha yatha vikriyate gunakto vikaroti va tatha tato padrashtatma tad vrittir anukaryate. Synonyms: Yatha yatha, just as, Vrikyate is agitated, Guna Akta, associate with three modes of nature, Vikaroti, as it does, Va, or, Tatha Tatha, similarly, Upadrashta, observer, Atma, the soul, Tat, of the intelligence, Vritti, occupations, Anukaryate, imitates. Translation: Formally, it was explained that the queen is one's intelligence. While one is awake or asleep, that intelligence creates different situations. Being influenced by contaminated intelligence, the living entity envisions something and simply imitates the actions and reactions of his intelligence. Purport: the queen of Puranjan is described herein as intelligence itself. Intelligence acts both in the dream state and in the waking state, but it is contaminated by the three modes of material nature. Since the intelligence is contaminated, the living entity is also contaminated. In the conditioned state, the living entity acts according to his contaminated intelligence. Although he simply remains an observer, he nonetheless acts, being forced by a contaminated intelligence, which in reality is a passive agent. Om Ajnanti Virandasya Jnananjalashalakaya Chakshurum Militam Mena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so I believe that most of the devotees who are a part of this group and who have been attending regularly, they are probably familiar with the character of King Puranjan, which Narad Muni is actually describing. So we know that how Narad Muni is instructing King Prachini Parishad, and then he is also explaining him the different uh, analogies of how actually a living entity or a jiva is attracted to the material world. and how the jiva is getting entangled in the material world. So here in this particular verse, the mention of mind and intelligence. And we know from the Bhagavad Gita, 6th chapter and 34th verse, that the entire chariot because the Mahabharata was actually spoken in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So we have the chariot, and the chariot is actually representing certain things. So what is the chariot representing? The chariot is actually representing the body. The 5 horses are representing the 5 senses: tongue, eyes, ears, nose, and skin, which are actually also called as the 5 Gyanendriyas. And the reins, the driving instrument, symbolize the mind, whereas the driver is the intelligence and the passenger is the spirit soul, right? So each and every living entity, when they are in the material world, they are covered with gross body and subtle body. So we know from external vision, we can actually understand, we can perceive very clearly that the gross body has eyes, it has nose, it has all the other senses. But at the same time, the subtle body also, we know from the Bhagavad Gita and the scriptures that the gross body is consisting of the material elements, right? It is composed of the material elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether, and then the subtle body is composed of mind, intelligence, and false ego. So I just wanted to also share one very important thing is that although the gross body has senses and it is, it is perceivable by us, but the subtle body also, it also has subtle senses. So just as we have eyes, we have nose, we have ears, we have hands and legs. So similarly, the subtle body also has all these features. It's just that we are not able to see that. Okay, because even amongst the gross elements also, certain gross elements are more subtle than others. So we are not able to see them directly, right? We cannot see air, but we can feel the presence of air by touch. So similarly, the subtle body also has senses. When we, for example, when we are dreaming, when we are in a dreaming condition, or when we are asleep, that time the subtle body leaves the gross body, and it will experience many things according to its impressions and karmas from the past life or this life. Okay, and when we awake ourselves, then what happens? The subtle body again goes inside the gross body, right? So in this way, the subtle body is actually deeply connected with the gross body. As long as a person does not die, the subtle body does not leave the gross body. As soon as a person dies, the subtle body will come out of the gross body and it will take another gross body or a gross form, right? So this is the subtle body which actually goes in different places according to its karma, and it will accept different types of gross bodies. Now, generally, if a living entity does not perform devotional service to the Lord, then what happens? The subtle body will go, it will be carried away by the Yamadutas, and it will go to the abode of Yamraj, where it will be assigned certain reactions for its sinful activities. So depending on whatever sinful activities they have done, it will the subtle body will go to different places in the material realm. So it will go to the lower planetary system, and depending on the type of sinful reactions, sinful activities, they will reside there for some time. And then after getting trained in order to acquire a particular type of body, then they will come to this Bhumandala or Bharatvarsha, and then again they will get a chance to get a human form of life. It can also depend. They may also come back as animal form, and then after evolving through the 8.4 million species of life, they can finally attain a human form of life. Now, if they get mercy of devotees of the Lord, then instead of evolving from one to another species, they will directly transmigrate to human form of life. So that's a shortcut, and obviously that will that is definitely dependent on the mercy of the Lord and the devotees. Okay, so so now the question is that how do we avoid all this karmic cycle? Because we have the mind and intelligence, and we know that the mind is affected by so many things in the material world. Mind is constantly distracted by the object of desire for enjoyments in the material world. It always wanders from one place to another place. And so because of that, we have intelligence. So intelligence is something that which is going to control the mind. And because of intelligence only, we will be able to get out of this material world. So now intelligence can be contaminated or it can be pure. Okay, so and so how do we discriminate between pure intelligence and contaminated? Is by accepting the knowledge which is favorable for devotional service of the Lord and rejecting knowledge which is unfavorable to the service of the Lord. And if we only accept material knowledge which will keep us in the material world, which will bound us in the material world, then the intelligence will become contaminated. So that's why it's very important, extremely important, that this intelligence should be channelized properly, and as much as possible it should be connected with the absorption uh, connected to the devotional service of the Lord, or in terms of hearing about the Lord, chanting about the Lord, remembering the Lord, worshipping the Lord, serving the Lord, all these other Navvidha Bhakti forms that we have. So the more we engage in all these Navvidha Bhakti processes, the more the intelligence will be purified, right? And the more we get out of this material world, and we'll get increasing attachment and attraction towards the Lord. So now, how to purify the intelligence? So many ways are there described in the Shastra. I will tell you that the foundational principle of purifying the intelligence, and if you don't follow the foundational principle, even if you chant holy name, because we know in the material world, in Kali Yuga, Kirtanam is actually the king of all processes. Out of the 9 limbs of bhakti, Kirtanam is the king of all the processes, right? But in order for Kirtanam to be effective, it must be assisted by Sravanam as well as Smaranam. And so I just wanted to share something very interesting that Prabhupada wrote about Sravanam. Another interesting point is that bhakti actually begins with Shravanam. It does not begin with chanting. So unless and until you hear something, you actually cannot chant. So one time Prabhupada said that unless and until a devotee hears from his guru, he cannot actually preach to others because he has not heard anything from his guru. So how is he going to preach? Because he does not know anything, right? So the first step towards bhakti is not Kirtanam, it is Shravanam. And bhakti begins with Shravanam. Okay. So we have, that's why in the sequence of the Navvidha Bhakti process, which is described by Prahlad Maharaj in the Srimad Bhagavatham, it starts with Sravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, so on, like that, right? So, so Prabhupada, this is something that I'm putting to Prabhupada's lecture on the Bhagavad Gita, 17th chapter, 1 to 3 verses, which he gave in Honolulu on July 4th, 1974. So Prabhupada made it very clear in this that without knowledge and following the instructions of Guru, chanting cannot be pure. Okay, this is very important to understand. So although we adopt different ways to be attentive while chanting the holy name or to try to get attraction to the holy name, but we have to realize one thing, that unless and until we develop taste for hearing and we develop taste for serving the Guru, our chanting will not be effective. It will not be pure. Another interesting point is that in order to chant purely, we have to have Sambandh Gyan. So see, there are different ways of chanting, as you are probably aware. Namaprat, Namabhas, and Shuddhanam. We know that from the example of Ajamil, if a devotee just chants at the stage of Namabhas, or any outsider also, even if a non-devotee chants the holy name without any offenses, then they get rid of all sinful reactions. And Rupa Goswami also mentions this point, that the holy name is so potent that you can't even imagine how much karma it can destroy, because it will destroy not only the past karma, the previous karma, but all upcoming future karmas at one stroke. Okay, so you cannot even imagine the strength and the unlimited potency of the holy name. This is the power of the holy name. But the condition is that the holy name should be pure. It should be purely chanted. Now, at least offenseless chanting. Now, there is a subtle difference between offenseless chanting and pure chanting of the holy name. Offenseless chanting means anyone unknowingly, unintentionally, if they call out the name of the Lord, even if they do not have devotion for the Lord, then also they get the benefit and credit. This is the extreme mercy of the holy name. And then what to speak of chanting the holy name purely, which means that you render pure devotional service to the Lord. So if your devotional service is pure, then only you get full effect of the holy name, which is just by chanting one syllable of the holy name purely, you actually attain the feet of Krishna. Whereas Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita that Even if you chant millions of names of the Lord every single day, but if it is covered with offenses, then it will take millions of lifetimes. It cannot have any effect, right? So we have to understand that the quality is actually very important. In order to get the quality for chanting the holy name, Sravanam, constant hearing, is extremely important, along with reading also. So now see, why do I say that hearing and reading, these are very important things? So I will explain this, but before that I would like to explain one point, that why I am talking about chanting, because chanting is the king of all process. And chanting, according to the scriptures, according to the acharyas, chanting is actually the most easiest way and the most powerful way to control the mind and intelligence, right? But one thing we have to note, that in order to chant that way, we have to chant purely. And in order to chant purely, we have to constantly hear about the glories of the Supreme Lord. We have to also read about his leelas, right? So you see, it is very common experience that devotees, when they chant the holy name, they are not going to see Krishna face to face, because the process is, when you chant the holy name, you see the form of the Lord, then you remember the qualities of the Lord, and then you also uh, start remembering the pastimes of the Lord. Nama, Rupa, Guna, Leela. So these are all interconnected with each other. And so one time Prabhupada said that the goal of chanting is actually to naturally remember the pastimes of the Lord. If it is coming naturally, then definitely it is most favorable for our chanting, right? So now, obviously, in the beginning stages, you are not going to start remembering the pastimes of the Lord, because you don't know the pastimes of the Lord. And it's not that the Lord is going to appear before you and he is going to start performing pastimes in front of your eyes, right? So there is a process, there is a system, and chanting has to be accompanied by Sravanam, and uh, Sravanam also includes reading. So what is reading? Reading is silent hearing. So in one, I just want to read one purport by Srila Prabhupada, which is, he has given on the Srimad Bhagavatham, second canto, second chapter, 36th verse. So Prabhupada says that the Bhakti Yoga process is practiced by the devotees in different methods, like hearing, chanting, remembering, serving the lotus feet of Lord, worshipping, praying, rendering service in love, becoming friendly, and offering all that one may possess. All 9 methods are bona fide methods, and either all of them, some of them, or even one of them can bring about the desired result for the sincere devotee. But out of all the 9 different processes, the first one, namely hearing, is the most important function in the process of Bhakti Yoga. Without hearing sufficiently and properly, no one can make any progress by any of the methods of practice. And for hearing only, the Vedic literatures are there, compiled by authorized persons like Vyasdev, who is the powerful incarnation of Godhead. So we can uh, realize the importance of hearing from Guru, right? And then obviously Srimad Bhagavatam describes this kind of knowledge, this kind of uh, hearing has to be done every single day, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. And I will also go through those verses from the Srimad Bhagavatam, and I will explain how these verses from the Bhagavatam actually denotes the process, the stages from Shraddha to Prema. Okay, so we'll go through that later. But Prabhupada has given so many references. If you want, you can check in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, 8th chapter, 7th verse. Then 2nd canto, 2nd chapter, 30th verse also. Then 4th canto, 11th chapter, 31st verse also. And then 3rd canto, 28th chapter, 19th verse. And then there are so many letters by Prabhupada where he is requesting all the devotees to read his books. He's begging all of them to read his books and make it a daily practice. Okay. So in one particular purport by Prabhupada in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela, Prabhupada says that if devotees, they do not read my books, then a time will come they will just eat, sleep, defend, and fall down. Okay. So this is actually important. And just by reading Prabhupada books or by hearing, one will gradually attain that kind of taste and attachment towards the Lord. And that is for sure. So Prabhupada said many times, chant 16 rounds attentively, follow the 4 regulated principles very strictly, and read my books very thoroughly, scrutinizingly, carefully, studiously, seriously. So many words he has used. And then Prabhupada says that if one does this, then the super soul, the Paramatma, will guide the devotee from within, and all the questions will be answered from within by the Paramatma. Okay, so this is actually a very, very important element of our bhakti, and we should take it very seriously. Okay. So see, now why intelligence is controlled by hearing and chanting is mainly because the first and foremost thing we have to understand that the root cause of suffering is avidya, right? This is what Rupa Goswami clearly explains in the Bhakti Samrit Sindhu, that the root cause of ignorance or the root cause of suffering, the root cause of suffering is avidya. It is lack of knowledge. Now, it is very easy to understand this principle because when you are in ignorance, you cannot actually get attached to something uh, which is transcendental. If you are attached to hearing something about the mundane world, then you will only keep thinking about that. Okay, so as soon as you divert your attention from the mundane to transcendental realm, uh, from that point onwards, you start getting attracted and attached towards that process. Okay, so what we have to do is whatever mundane knowledge that we gather till now, although obviously we are in different ashrams and we have responsibilities, we have services to perform, so we continue doing that, but we should also allot a certain amount of time in our daily practices to read something about the Lord and to also hear about the Lord every day, every single day. So when we do this, what we are doing is we are kind of replacing whatever mundane knowledge we are gathering in this material world. We are replacing that with spiritual knowledge, and that is called vidya. So vidya destroys avidya, right? And so when you start attaining knowledge, then this vidya will start destroying all the ignorance. And obviously the root cause of even karma or the entanglement in the material world is coming from avidya. Because if you don't hear about certain things in the material world, you can never get attracted to it. Just think about it. See, the fact that you have heard about certain things from someone repeatedly, with a lot of importance, that's why you get attracted to certain things, and then you develop a desire to try that out, right, in the material world. So similarly, when you hear the glories of the Lord from the devotees, then also you want to attempt to try it out. Okay, and then once you start trying it out, so you start going gradual in the process. And so with uh, you start with a minimum standard, and then you gradually start increasing the standard. And obviously the Lord will also reciprocate. He will also give us taste. He will make arrangements for us to progress in bhakti if we are sincere and we do not offend Vaishnavas. So that way we will gradually progress in the path of bhakti. And the more we progress in the path of bhakti, the more we want to hear about the Lord, the more we will replace the mundane knowledge with transcendental knowledge. Okay, so that's why hearing and reading is actually foundational principle of spiritual life, and that's why bhakti begins with Sravanam. Okay, so now let's discuss something about the difference between hearing and reading. So someone would say that, okay, is it okay, Prabhuji, if we just hear but we don't read? So that is okay. I mean, reading is silent hearing in one sense, but one thing we can understand: the more you attain knowledge through hearing from devotees or by reading books, the more you become realized also. Because the more you actually understand the process of Krishna consciousness very deeply, the more you understand process of Krishna consciousness deeply, the more you can actually appreciate, and the more you can also understand the siddhant, the tattva behind the leelas of the Lord, and you can also share it with others, right? So and it will also drive you. It will also drive you. It will also provide you the enthusiasm to distribute with others, because this is so important. Every Brajvasi is so enthused to distribute and share the knowledge of Krishna consciousness with others. Okay, so for that, definitely we require knowledge, because we are not born with knowledge, right? We are born with mundane knowledge, and that has to be replaced with transcendental knowledge. So the more we hear, the more we read, the more actually we'll be able to get attraction and taste for glorifying the Supreme Lord and share with others. Now, certain things that you hear in the classes, you might not find in the books, and certain things that you might hear, you read in the books, you will not be able to probably hear in the classes. So it is I think it's a best combination if you hear and also spend time on reading. And so, like, if you have 1 hour of hearing, then I would request devotees that they hear for half an hour and they also read for half an hour every single day. And by this combination, everything will be revealed to us with time. Okay, and we'll actually get deeply absorbed in Krishna consciousness. This all will become, it will all happen naturally. You don't have to force yourself or anything. Just by being steady in Krishna consciousness, all these things will be revealed to us with time. So there are certain things that you will not find in the books, which you will probably get to hear from devotees. And then there are a lot of things that you will not find in the lectures, which actually you will be able to find in the books, right? So it should be a combination of both these things. And the more we try to read and hear, the more it will also have a direct influence on the chanting of the holy name. Okay. Now, obviously, along with that, if we can also render practical service, that is the best thing, because whatever theoretical knowledge that we have attained in this process, it will be, it will be an exam for our knowledge. So the knowledge has to turn to realization. Okay. And that's why it should not just be theoretical. So we hear a lot of things. We hear a lot of qualities of the devotees, and then we also hear about so many other pastimes of the Lord. Maybe we hear certain things for which we are not even qualified, right? So now, how to understand whether we are qualified or not? So Rup Goswami, right away in the Nectar of Instruction, the first verse, Rup Goswami actually talks about the qualification, Vacho Vegam, Manaso Krodha Vegam, right? So he says that unless and until one controls the mind and senses, one can't even become a guru and preach effectively. So the beginning of Krishna consciousness is basically if you are somehow able to control the mind and senses. And how to understand this? See, if you keep only hearing and reading and keep only remembering the Lord, but if you do not render some practical service, if you do not please Guru, if you do not serve in the mission of Srila Prabhupada, if you do not try to preach or take some responsibility for Prabhupada's mission or movement, then what will happen? You'll never be able to understand how much you're progressing in spiritual life, because every time, when we take some responsibility, Krishna will send us so many challenges, so many obstacles, so many tests in order for us to actually understand where we are at, right? So there are stages described by Rupa Goswami, from Shraddha to Prema, Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana, Kriya, Anartha, Nivritti, Nishtha, Ruchi, Asakti, Bhav, Prem. And so there are symptoms which are described for each and every stage of these stages. But now, how do we really practically realize? Because we know theoretically that, okay, Nishtha means this, that one, in order to chant constantly, one should be humble than a blade of grass and more tolerant than a tree. It looks so good to hear all these things. It is so much pure. Everything is so pure in Krishna consciousness. But then whether I am able to implement all these instructions, that is actually the most important. So this is what makes a devotee a pure devotee. Okay, not just based on how much a devotee expertly able to speak about the glories of the Lord, but the real test is that along with speaking about, along with hearing, chanting, how much the devotee is actually being a humble servant of his Guru, and how much he is willing to serve the instruction of Guru, how much he is willing to surrender to the instructions of Guru. So it's a holistic process. So the more the devotee increases his taste in chanting, hearing, and remembering, the more he would also like to surrender to his Guru. In fact, the foundational principle of Raganuga Bhakti or Ragmarg is that there is one pointed attention towards the instruction of the Guru. So Vishwanath Thakur, Prabhupada quotes very often Vishwanath Thakur in this regards from the Bhagavad Gita, where this particular shloka is mentioned, that Vyavasayatmika Buddhir Ekei Kuru Nandana, that a devotee is, technically a devotee is someone who is actually one pointedly devoted to the instructions of the spiritual master, and he makes the instruction of spiritual master his life and soul. Okay, so this is very important. And then we have the verse from the Bhagavad Gita also, that tad vidhi pranipratena pariprashnena sevaya upekshita jnanam jnana tattva darshina, that you have to approach bona fide Guru, render service to him, inquire submissively from the Guru. then the guru or the realized soul will impart knowledge. Okay, and then that's how you make actually advancement in spiritual life. If possible, a devotee should also have practical service, and that's how actually they will be able to recognize where they actually are at, and theoretical knowledge will be realized knowledge later on. Okay. Yeah, so now, see, chanting in itself, if you just want to chant the holy name on stage, and along with chanting, absorption should also be there in the chanting. Even if you're chanting extra rounds, like for example, if you chant more than 16 rounds, maybe a part of your vows in a particular special month like Purushottam Mas or Kartik Mas or some special festival occasion. But it is also very important that how attentively and how much quality you're chanting the holy name, you're taking shelter of the holy name, even on in those extra rounds, not just the 16 rounds. So that's why, one time His Holiness Sachinandan Maharaj, he mentioned that the real chanting begins at 17th round. It is not uh, the starting 16 rounds. Although obviously, according to Prabhupada's standard, these 16 rounds can also take you back to Godhead. There is no doubt about it. But the quality actually shows up in the 17th round. So that means that even if you want to chant extra rounds, you have to chant in such a way that you have to chant attentively with quality. Otherwise, we know that again, being inattentive while chanting the holy name is an aparadh. It's an offense to the holy name. So then again, you get into this cycle, and even though you keep chanting constantly for so many years, still, you will not make sufficient advancement in spiritual life. So that's why what I suggest devotees is that they should, instead of chanting unnecessarily, increasing their chanting unnecessarily, or maybe uh, without the proper qualifications, they may chant extra rounds beyond 16 rounds, for example 18 rounds or 20 rounds. But I don't think that there is a need for, especially for Grihastha devotees or those who are doing services, they have sufficient services or responsibilities. I don't think they have a need to chant more than that. Instead of that, I would say that rather than that, they would probably spend more time on hearing and reading. And you will see over a period of time, because of your strong hearing and reading, what influence it will have in your chanting also. And then once you start making advancement, you naturally want to chant more and more. Okay. And another important principle is that chanting is actually internal function. It's not even like you don't even have to chant externally. uh, Once you start absorbing yourself in the pastimes of the Lord, in the qualities of the Lord, then technically speaking, you are chanting the holy name always. You're chanting within also, because ultimately we have to understand that Nam is leading to Rupa Guna Leela. So if you are getting absorbed in the qualities, pastimes, fame of the Lord, then automatically actually you are chanting the holy name from within. Okay, from within the mind or the heart. It does not have to be showed externally. So one who is able to do this, because see, there are three types of chanting. One is the Vachik, then the second one is the Upamshu chanting, and the third one is the Mansik. So now Vachik means that you are chanting loudly. You are able to hear, as well as others are also able to hear. Then Upanshu chanting is chanting that you are murmuring. So you are able to hear yourself. Okay. And then Mansik is chanting which is within the mind. So now if you see, the most difficult type of chanting is actually the Mansik chanting, because in Kali Yuga, it is very difficult to control the mind and to focus or to meditate on something. So the more you hear and read, the more your mind will be controlled, and your mind and intelligence will be controlled by this. And the more you will be able to focus, absorb, remember Krishna to a great extent. And that will naturally influence your chanting also. Okay. Uh, yeah, so that's why I would suggest, I recommend devotees that if they are not reading and hearing at all, and if they are just focusing on chanting the holy name, I don't think that's a good way to chant the holy name. Only those who are really advanced, very advanced, and even see, they are advanced because they have reached the stage where they have sufficiently heard about the Lord, and they have also rendered service. That's why they are able to chant the holy name. And chanting the holy name if you want to get taste, the taste can only come when you have the mercy of Guru, Vaishnavas and the Lord. Without that, whatever you do, the Lord will never reveal himself in the holy name. We are always subservient to the desire of the Lord. Even though we chant the name, see, even if we chant the name purely, if Krishna does not want to appear before us, he will not appear. So this is what we have to understand. We cannot purchase the Lord just by following a prescribed method or going beyond the prescribed method, and in terms of quantity and quality both. We cannot purchase the Lord. Only when the Lord desires, he will actually manifest himself and appear himself, right? So Prabhupada has given us a process in ISKCON that sadhana, we have to get absorbed in sadhana, we have to focus on internal cultivation as well as external cultivation also, which means we have to preach and we have to also make our sadhana very strong. And so sometimes we have to balance these things. So what happens is sometimes devotees, they move to one extreme and they only focus on sadhana, but they do not preach. And sometimes devotees only preach, but their sadhana is weak. That's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu praised Haridas Thakur. And he said that you are actually the perfect example because, and you are the greatest devotee because you are not only chanting the holy name, you are also preaching to others. You are also sharing this with others. So you have achar and you also have sadachar. Okay, both you have. So this is a balanced and perfect combination. And this is how actually we can even please Srila Prabhupada the most. Okay. So obviously then there are other ways of in the mind, like the most effective chanting can also be done with the help of deities. I always recommend and suggest devotees that if they are able to chant the holy name constantly in front of deities every single day for years to come, at least for 5 or 6 years, every single day, if they are able to chant the holy name in front of deities, you see the influence of chanting. Then what will happen? This is actually a process which is recommended by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and he says it's a most effective process amongst all. Why? Because when you chant in front of the deities, you get attached to the deities, or in other words, you get attached to the form of the Lord. And when you get attached to the form of the Lord, whenever you go, wherever you go, wherever you chant the holy name, even if you are, you may not be in the temple, you may not be chanting in the association of devotees, but because you have seen the deities for a long period of time, you have established a relationship, you have cultivated feelings for the deities, the deity will manifest itself when you chant the holy name. Whenever you chant the holy name, Krishna's name, then it has to be assisted with the form also. So that will make your chanting very personal. Okay, it won't be impersonal, because many times what happens, we are chanting Krishna's holy name, our mind is not there. We are actually thinking of other things, and at the same time, many times we also perceive that Krishna is actually not fully present in the holy name, and that makes the holy name impersonal for us, right? So it is extremely effective that whenever devotees are chanting during Brahma Muhurta or whenever they have time, at least the first 16 rounds when they chant in front of deities. Okay, and you can see the effect. So you can chant in front of your house deities, or you may also chant in front of the most favorite deities that you are attached to. And if you don't have the deities, obviously, like for example, if you have the deities in temple, then you can make a life-size picture of the deity and you can install in your altar, in the house altar, and then you can chant in front of the picture also. So this will take you to another realm, right? And then obviously we also know that prasadam is so effective. As much as possible, devotees, they should try to have prasadam almost every day. So all these processes, they will help you to control the mind and intelligence very strongly. And obviously, ultimately it will all come to the chanting of the holy name. And when our chanting is pure, then as Prabhupada said, that 99% of the progress in spiritual life depends on chanting the holy name, right? So in order to make this pure, in order to make the chanting pure, it must be accompanied by these things. Okay, then it's a holistic process, and then we can actually chant the name purely. Because if Guru is pleased, even if Krishna is not pleased, what Krishna can do? He has to give you Krishna Prem. If Guru is pleased, if Radharani is pleased with us, then if devotees are pleased, then Krishna cannot do anything. He's completely in the hands of, he's sold out in the hands of his devotees. So if we please Guru, it's a short way, it's a guaranteed way to go back to Krishna, even if Krishna does not want us for some reason, right? So this is very important. Now, see, now how expertly Srila Prabhupada has given us the five most potent the five most potent limbs of bhakti in ISKCON. So we know that Srila Rupa Goswami has stated in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that amongst there are 64 limbs of bhakti. Okay, but essentially they are the expansion of the five limbs of bhakti, the five main limbs of bhakti. And which are these five limbs? We know that Kirtanam. Kirtan is the topmost. Then comes association, Sangha of devotees. Then comes the Sravanam of Srimad Bhagavatam. Then comes Dham Vas, and then comes deity worship. So see how intelligently Prabhupada designed our ISKCON in such a way. He has given all these five things. Kirtan, obviously, Kirtan is the life and soul of ISKCON. And Kirtan also means book distribution, because Prabhupada said that this is Brihat Mridanga, right? Because it can spread to each and every corner of the world. So book distribution and Kirtan Prabhupada gave. And then association of devotees. Prabhupada created an organization, a house for the entire world to come together to share their same inclinations and to glorify the Supreme Lord, right? So association of devotees also we know Prabhupada gave. And then Srimad Bhagavatam, every morning we have Srimad Bhagavatam class in the temple. And then Prabhupada also gave, he also recommended that devotees should read Krishna book in the night when they go to bed, right? So Prabhupada gave a sandwich program, basically. And then Dhamvas, Prabhupada said that each and every temple, ISKCON temple, is a local Vaikuntha. Okay, and then obviously Prabhupada also emphasized the importance of going to the Dham, recharging your batteries, and staying in the Dham for a lot of time, spending a lot of time in the Dham in order to get attached to the Dham, in order to actually, because Prabhupada says many places in the Bhagavatam as well as other Shastra that it is so easy to get connected to Krishna in the Dham, because that's the special mercy of the Dham. If you spend time in the Dham, you can easily feel the vibrations of the transcendental atmosphere in the Dham, and you can easily remember Krishna. It is very easy to remember Krishna and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Jagannath in their respective Dhams. Okay, extremely easy. That's why Prabhupada strongly recommended that devotees, they can, if possible, once in a year, twice in a year, they should go to the Dham and they should try to get attached to the Dham. Okay, and then obviously the idea is that we don't want to come out of the Dham. We always want to reside in the Dham. Whenever we go to the Dham, we want to take a lot of memories of the Dham, and then we also want to try to, wherever we go outside of the Dham, we also would like to bring the Dham there with us. Okay, cultivate the atmosphere of the Dham. That means we have to be absorbed. We have to keep remembering the Dham, even outside of Dham. Even though we are outside of Dham, we always would like to remember the Dham, and we always try to connect whatever we see in this material world with the Dham. So like for example, we have so many great Vaishnavas in our ISKCON, and whenever they go outside of Dham, they always try to connect a certain place, a certain city with a certain forest of Vrindavan, right? With a certain area of a Dham. So this actually creates a transcendental atmosphere wherever we go, even outside of the Dham. So we have to remember one thing, that whether we are in the Dham or outside of Dham, in the temple, outside of temple, we try to make every place a Dham by actually remembering the places which are connected to Dham. Okay, so Dham is there, and then we have the deity worship. ISKCON is parallelly working on two tracks. One is the Panchratik Vidhi and one is the Bhagavat Vidhi. Okay, so now because we are not spontaneously attracted to Krishna, we are not completely absorbed in Krishna consciousness. That's why, and then because we have so many sinful habits from our previous lives, we are conditioned also to a great extent. That's why in order to balance the Bhagavat mark, which is a Rag mark, in order to balance that mark, we have to have a rules and regulations mark also, or a rule and regulation path, which is the Panchratrik Vidhi. Okay, so Vidhi means rules and regulations, and that's why Prabhupada introduced deity worship. Okay, although deity worship is not the process of Kali Yuga, it is not the actual mode of worship of Kali Yuga, it was in Dwapar Yuga. But why deity worship so important for all devotees? And Prabhupada did recommend that especially Grihasthas, they should have deities in their house if they are living far from the temple. Okay. In that way, what happens is when they serve the deities, when they see the deities, we are purified. And we also develop attachment towards the Lord. And then we can also offer bhoga to the Lord, which will be as consumed as prasadam. So that will also purify our consciousness. So this deity worship is very important element. In fact, one time Prabhupada said that just by worshipping the deity perfectly, one will go back to God in this lifetime. And another place Prabhupada said that actually amongst all the devotees, the pujaris are the most fortunate because they are actually in their constitutional position, which means that they are, whatever activities are going in the spiritual world, the same activities the pujaris are also doing in the material world. Okay, so that's why they are actually the most fortunate, because they have established the relationship with Krishna very firmly. So this is the significance of deity worship. And obviously, as I said, that even for chanting, if you chant in front of deities every day, every single day, then you will see how, even if you get distracted, see, initially we start the chanting with attention, and then after 1 or 2 rounds, our mind starts getting distracted. So we kind of, we are diverted, and then it's very difficult for us to bring the mind back to the holy name. But when you are in front of deities, the deities will actually remind you of Krishna. It will remind you of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then very easily you can draw your mind towards the holy name. It's a very powerful process, very easy also. It will help you like anything in your chanting of the holy name. So it's a most easiest way to actually bring the mind to the holy name. Okay. So these are the most potent forms of bhakti. Intelligently, Prabhupada has actually introduced this in Krishna consciousness. So if we just do these 5, if we just follow these 5 processes, obviously the foundational principle is taking the instructions of Guru and serving the Guru, and taking Siksha and Diksha from the Guru. So this is the foundation. And then if you have this strong foundation, when you perform all these limbs of bhakti, especially the 5 limbs of bhakti, then you will see that how your spiritual life, you will make so much advancement. And you'll get so much enthusiasm also. You'll get so much taste for the Lord. Okay. So now I just wanted to conclude the class with 2 verses. Actually, one was, verses from the Srimad Bhagavatam explaining how this process of Sravanam leads to the attainment of the Lord. Okay. See, that's why I'm stressing on hearing and reading. So, from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2nd chapter, verse number 17 till verse number 21. So these are very popular verses. Shrinvatam Sakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridaya Antasto Abhivapadrani Vidunoti Swarta Satam Nashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamastoke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtikir Tada Rajastamo Bhava Kama Lobha Dayaschaye Cheta Eter स्थितम सत्वे प्रसिद्धति एवं प्रसन्नो मनसो भागवत भक्ति योगत भागवत तत्व विज्ञानम मुक्त संगस्य जायते हृदय ग्रंथे चित्यन्ते सर्व संशय शियन्ते चास्य कर्माणि दृष्टा एवात्मनेश्वरे. So these are the verses that I just read from Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st Canto, 2nd chapter, 17 verse till 21. Okay, now Srila Rupa Swami is mentioning something very interesting. He says how actually, see, have you ever wondered how Rupa Swami came to the conclusion that there are 9 stages of bhakti? Actually, he has deduced these 9 stages from these verses, and we'll see how. Srinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana, then Nashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu. So see, the process begins with hearing. And when do you hear? When you start hearing from sadhus. So basically that's sadhu sangha, right? Shraddha, we come with some shraddha. Faith is definitely required in the path of bhakti. We come with some small faith in bhakti, and then we take association of devotees. So shraddha leads to sadhu sangha, and in that sadhu sangha, we start hearing about Krishna. Shrinvatam Sakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana, right? And then we follow whatever process that they recommend, the sadhus recommend. We start implementing that process, right? We start executing. And because of that, what will happen? So basically what we are doing is we move on from sadhu sang to bhajana kriya, because bhajana kriya is a process where we start executing the process which is given by the sadhus, what we hear from them. And once we start bhajana kriya, what will happen? Anartha nivriti, which means all the anarthas will start getting destroyed in our devotional services, right? So that means after anartha nivriti, the state of nishta will come. So Rup Goswami says that this second verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Nashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtikir. So see, this is the key word in the second verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which we have narrated, Naishtiki at the end. So Naishtiki means the state of Nishta. And it is quite logical to understand this. Why? Because Nashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu. So what is the meaning of that? Destructions of anarthas. And how it can happen? Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. So in that particular verse, Prabhupada explains a very important principle. He says that there are two types of Bhagavat. One is the book Bhagavat and one is the devotee Bhagavat, right? And out of these two, the devotee Bhagavat is actually more important because the devotee Bhagavat can catch your ear and he can scold you and he can also chastise you, which the book Bhagavat can actually not do, right? So when we hear from Guru, when we hear from sadhus, and when we engage in the process of bhakti, when we serve the instructions of Guru, then Nashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu. Now it has to be done constantly. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Okay, it should be done every single day or regularly. And in fact, it is very interesting to note that even in Bhakti Samrit Sindhu, the key verse of Bhakti Samrit Sindhu, the foundational verse is Anya Bilasita Sunyam Yana Karmadi Anavritam Anukulyena Krishnanu Shilanam Bhaktir Uttama. So if you see this Anushilanam word is very important. Actually, Shilanam means Anushilanam means continuous. It is steady. So what is Uttama Bhakti? It's a Bhakti. Okay, so sometimes devotees will chant 16 rounds one day, then they will chant 8 rounds another day, then they will chant 10 rounds, and sometimes they will not chant at all. Sometimes devotees will serve one day, and some other days they will not serve at all. And then sometimes they will hear something, sometimes they will not hear something. So sometimes they will read something and sometimes will not. So this is not regular, this is not steady, and that's why this is not Uttama Bhakti. Uttama Bhakti, which is, it is continuous, it is steady, it is regular. So once you start continuously applying the process of Krishna consciousness, then Nashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu will start happening immediately. Okay, and then obviously in the first verse, Prabhupada also explains, and the verse itself explains that Krishna within the heart as the Paramatma will start guiding the devotees. He will start helping the devotees. He will destroy the anarthas from within the devotee's heart. As soon as one starts to hear about Krishna with faith from the mouth of pure devotees. Okay, so this is about the state of Nishta. Then the third verse talks about Tada Rajas Tamo Bhava Kama Lobha Dayaschaye Cheta Eter Anaviddam Stitam Satve Prasiddhati. Okay, so Satve, now this Satve at the last line of this verse, the Satve is actually very important to understand. This Sattva is not the mode of goodness. Okay, it's not the mode of goodness of the material world, but it is Shuddha Sattva. Shuddha Sattva is actually transcendental mode of goodness, which is existing in the spiritual realm. It does not exist in the material world. So now this particular verse, it refers to Ruchi and Asakti, because what is happening here, the Rajagun, Tamagun, and whatever impurities we have in the heart is kind of destroyed. It's almost destroyed completely. Okay, so one cannot attain the stage of Shuddha Sattva unless they are sufficiently purified. So this is actually the representative of the Ruchi and Asakti stage, according to Srila Rupa Goswami. Obviously, I'm not concocting anything according to my speculation. And then the next verse says, Evam prasanna manaso bhagavad bhakti yogata bhagavad tattva vijnanam mukta sangasya jayate. So at this stage, the whatever ignorance that you have, whatever avidya that you have is completely destroyed. Mukta sangasya jayate. It means that you are completely liberated, or the ignorance is completely destroyed. That can only happen in the state of bhava. So this verse represents the state of bhava. And then the last verse, Vidyate hridaya grantes chidyante sarva shamshaya chiyante chasya karmani drishta evat manishvare So this is the verse which actually talks about prema, which is the final stage. Because whatever the knots of illusion and knots of material world bondage are there, they are completely gone. Okay. And then they also perceive the Lord within their minds. They see the Lord. So drishta evat manishware. So in the mind, okay, and seeing the Lord is only possible when you attain the stage of prema or love for the Lord. So these are the series from Shraddha to Prema. And then I will just conclude with one here that how just beginning from Sravanam, it has lead to the stage of Prema, right? So another very important concept which is presented by Srila Narottam Thakur. I just go through that. And I will also read one purport by Srila Prabhupada because these are connected to each other. Okay, now before that, I just made a note that without attaining the state of Nishtha, one can never attain the state of Ruchi and higher stages. So this is something which is very important. Unless and until the devotee will become steady in the Krishna consciousness, they can never get taste. They can never develop taste for the Lord or taste for anything, any process of bhakti. Okay, 1 second. Okay, so this is Srila Prabhupada mentioning in the next instruction, the verse number 8. Prabhupada says that in the neophyte stage, one should always engage in hearing Krishna Katha. This is called Shravana Dasha, the state of hearing. By constantly hearing the transcendental holy name of Krishna and hearing of his transcendental form, qualities, and pastimes, one can attain the stage of acceptance called Varana Dasha. When one attains this stage, he becomes attached to the hearing of Krishna Katha. When one is able to chant in ecstasy, he attains the stage of Smarana Avastha, the stage of remembering. Recollection, absorption, meditation, constant remembrance, and trance are the 5 items of progressive Krishna Smarana. At first, remembrance of Krishna may be interrupted at intervals, but later remembrance proceeds uninterruptedly. When remembrance is uninterrupted, it becomes concentrated and is called meditation. When meditation expands and becomes constant, it is called anusmriti. By uninterrupted and unceasing anusmriti, one enters the stage of samadhi or spiritual trance. After Smarana Dasha or samadhi has fully developed, soul comes to understand his original constitutional position. At that time, he can perfectly and clearly understand his eternal relationship with Krishna. That is called Sampati Dasha, the perfection of life. Okay, so now there are 5 stages of Smaranam. And there are 5 processes which are connected to each other. So it is beginning with, see, how one will attain the Lord. It is summarized in these 5 forms. So it starts with Shravanam, and then after Shravanam is Varanam, which is the mode of acceptance, and Prabhupada has explained this. And after the mode of acceptance, one will start meditating, one will start remembering. Okay, this stage is called Smaranam. Now, Smaranam is divided into 5 subcategories, which is as follows. The first is Smarana itself, then the second is Dharana, then third is Dhyana, the fourth is Dhruvanu Smriti, and then the final stage is Samadhi. Okay. So if you remember, we have 5 stages: Shravanam, Varanam, Smaranam, Apana Dasha, and then finally Sampati Dasha, right? So the third one, Smaranam, is divided into further subcategories into 5 parts, which is Smarana, Dharana, Dhyana, Dhruv Anusmriti, and then Samadhi. Okay, so now everything begins with Shravanam. So then Shravanam will lead you to Varanam. Now Varanam means what? Varanam means you accept the process, or you accept whatever instructions you have been given. You accept the philosophy, you accept, it can also mean that acceptance of Swarupa, one's original Swarupa in the spiritual world. And then after accepting, you start meditating. So see, it's a very logical sequence where we can understand that how you can meditate if you are not even steady in your Krishna consciousness. So the state of Smaranam actually indicates the state of Nishtha. Okay. And then once you progress from Smaranam till the stage of Apana Dasha, So this state of apana dasha, and in between we have these 5 stages of smaranam, right? And I've already okay. Let me read out what are the differences between these 5 stages of smaranam. So this is according to Srila Narottam Das Thakur. He has mentioned this in the Prem Bhakti Chandrika. He's mentioned that the engagement of the mind is called smaranam. Withdrawing the mind from all material objects and ordinary engaging the mind on the Lord is called dharana. Thinking specifically about the names, forms of the Lord is called dhyana. Thinking of the forms of the Lord without interruption, just like a flow of nectar, is called dhruvanusmriti. And constant manifestation of the name, form, qualities, and pastimes being the only object of meditation is called samadhi. The word, okay, anyways, yeah, this is what he has explained. He has differentiated between these 5 stages. And so obviously when Narottam Das Thakur is saying that constant manifestation of names, form, qualities, and pastimes being the only object of meditation, it has to mean the state of bhav. So at the state of apana dasha, you attain the state of bhav, and then finally at the state of sampatti dasha, you attain the state of prema. Okay, so these are also the stages how actually from hearing it leads to the state of prema. So it's a very interesting contribution by our acharyas. Prabhupada also mentioned this. Okay, all right. So this I will conclude the class. I'm sorry if I have gone over time, probably by 10 minutes. But if we have time for questions, yeah, I mean, devotees are most welcome to ask.
Thanks for the very, very nice and practical class, Prabhu. It was very nicely focused on Sravanam and Kirtanam, which definitely results in Smaranam. Thank you so much for the tips, especially chanting in front of the deity and improving quality. It's a class worth saving. Thank you so much for your association. No questions, but definitely wonderful class, Prabhu. Thank you for your association. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much for your association, Mataji, and giving me opportunity to serve all wonderful devotees in this group.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you so much for elaborating on the devotional processes. Very beautiful tips, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. And I would request everybody, if you have any questions for Prabhuji at this point.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Koti Koti Dandavat Pranam. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev Ki Jai. How nicely explained about Navdha Bhakti and body, mind and soul, and especially japa, doing japa attentively in front of our deities, Siddhikarnikai. And yes, reading, you give you focus on reading, Prabhu. Most of devotee, especially unqualified like me, I just hear so many Maharaj lecture and but not reading much, hardly 10-15 minutes, and that is also not regular. So thank you very much for inspiring us that both should be equal, half an hour reading and half an hour hearing. Or what we will do, just hearing 2-3 hours when we cooking prasadam or we are studying with our kids, but I will focus on study also. Hari Hari Gauranga.
Okay, see, it's a very good point, Mataji. Thank you for bringing this up. See, regarding the reading thing, I know that the many difficulties, they have tough time because not everyone has the habit of reading. But I would suggest that devotees, they should start reading Prabhupada books which they are most interested to read. For example, if you start with Krishna book, which has a lot of pastimes of Krishna, right? And then it's not necessary that you have to read half an hour. I mean, Prabhupada set the standard of 2 hours every day, right? That's a great standard. And we cannot expect that all the devotees will come to this standard. Even if they have taste, they will not be able to read so long because they have so many responsibilities and services also. So what we can do is we have to very nicely, we have to design a program where we balance all these things in a way that will suit your schedule, and that will also encourage you to increase reading and hearing over a period of time, and to also increase the chanting. Okay, so we, like, as Vaisheshika Prabhu also, so he also advises and suggests devotees that they should start with small steps, right? If you focus, as you mentioned that 15 minutes of reading, if you do, that's wonderful. But the most important thing is that you have to do the reading or hearing or chanting constantly, steadily. See, if you can, you should not focus on the quantity initially. If you can just maintain steadiness, uh, even if that is of less quality, less quantity, which means that even if you're chanting 8 rounds, even if you're reading for 15 minutes, even if you're hearing for 15 minutes, but if you are regular in that, if you're steady in that, I can guarantee you that after 1 or 2 years, you will come to a stage where you will increase, you'll go beyond 16 rounds, and you will also increase beyond reading and hearing beyond half an hour every day. I will guarantee you that. Plus, the most important quality that you will develop is to be steady. See, it's a practice. We have certain bad habits. We are conditioned, and we want to come out of that conditioning. So you have to replace it with something which is of higher taste, right? So when you do that, when you replace and you start doing it every day, every single day you do, then what happens? It becomes a pattern of your life. It becomes a habit for you to become steady, to focus on certain things on a timely basis. Okay. And that will actually help you. So whenever you want to increase your quantity also in the future, just because you have developed a habit of being steady in the earlier stages, that steadiness will actually help you to even steady your sadhana in an increasing quantity. So for example, if you are chanting only 8 rounds now, but later on, if you are steady for years, and then after 1 or 2 years, you come to 16 rounds, I'm pretty sure that a stage will come where you'll go beyond 16 rounds. You will start chanting 20 rounds also, but you will always be steady because that has become your nature and habit. Okay. So we have to practice this very thoroughly. Even in the beginning, you may have a tough time. That's why I say that try to read something which is of your interest. If you try to read something very philosophical at the beginning, you will not be able to continue for a long time. So better than that, focus on the pastimes of Krishna or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the beginning, uh, and with time, if you are able to maintain it steadily, I'm pretty sure that you will do much more than that. So that's a very nice comment, Mataji. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, Prabhuji. I follow your instruction. Hearing is very easy, Prabhuji. 7, 8, 9 hours I can hear every day. But reading, it is little difficult. But I try my best to 15, 20, increase 5 minutes every month, so that I can reach at least 1 hour. Not
Okay.
2 hours is impossible for me, but at least 1 hour.
Another important point, Mataji, is that yes, actually, Sravanam is the main thing. If you note one very interesting thing, that reading, now when we talk about reading is from the books, right? But what about the previous yugas? We didn't have any books. It is just that because of Kali Yuga, everything has to be recorded, and that's why Vedas he compiled and then recorded, and he made facility for all the Kali Yuga souls, because they forget every time, every moment they forget things. So if you ask me what I said today, tomorrow if you ask me, I will not be able to tell you what exactly I said today, right? So because we have a tendency to forget things, that's why it has to be in the recorded form, and so that's why we have the books. But if you are able to remember everything, which is definitely very unique and rare in Kali Yuga, you will not be able to. But what my point is that if you are getting the conclusion of Shastras from a devotee, or if you are able to hear from a devotee who is explaining you the Shastra, then what happens? You don't even have to read the books, right? But then there is only one disadvantage. If you do not read from Prabhupada books, you are missing Prabhupada's ecstasies. That's the only disadvantage. Otherwise, technically speaking, Shravanam truly means you have to hear from the Guru or Vaishnavas. Okay. And if you are hearing the conclusion of Shastras or details of the Shastra, for example, let's say if I present a class on Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. So now if I mention each and every point in the Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, the most essential point, you don't even have to read Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. What you have to focus is that you have to focus on the basics of Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, which is whether you understood the concept or not. Okay. see, even if you read, it's not necessary, it's not guaranteed that you will be able to understand everything, right? Ultimately, what you will do, you will ask a devotee, you will approach a devotee, you will clarify your questions and all the doubts you have. So ultimately, what is happening here? You are actually hearing only, finally, right? So if you are able to hear the conclusions from a Vaishnava, and he's explaining the Siddhanta and concepts, and you are able to understand these concepts, then ideally, you don't have to read. But yeah, but this is the only disadvantage, that because Prabhupada gave his life, and because being the followers of Srila Prabhupada, we definitely want to give Prabhupada something in return, right? We are eternally indebted to Srila Prabhupada. So when we read Prabhupada books, Prabhupada is extremely pleased. He is very happy. And just in order to please Prabhupada, we are just taking as an austerity. You can consider it like this. See, a reading is something like chanting the holy name. Like, like for example, for initiated devotees, like chanting 16 rounds. Okay. Or you can also say that if you are taking a vow in Purushottam Mas or Kartik Mas, that you want to do Govardhan Parikrama. Okay. Now, whenever you take some vow, there will be austerities, there will be challenges. But just because you took a vow, you have finished that vow. You took that challenge and obstacle, and you have done it, right? You have fulfilled your vow. So similarly, take it as a vow, take it as an austerity of reading Prabhupada books, even if you don't like to. But even if you start with 15 minutes of reading every day, and I'm pretty sure that you won't be bored just by reading 15 minutes, but you may start with something which is very interesting to you, and then I'm pretty sure that you will be able to come to a stage where you will be able to read Prabhupada books every day, every single day. So I also started gradually. See, I started with one round of chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. In a span of 6 months, I somehow, you can say that probably I jumped, but at least from that point of time, I am able to steadily chant that many rounds. So in 6 months, I was chanting more than 16 rounds. And till date, because of Guru's mercy, I've been able to do that. And that's only because being steady. And I think the most influential factor is because of all these things, that my hearing, my reading it's steady, it's constant. And then I'm also trying to serve Guru's instruction as much as possible. I mean, to my capacity. So just because of that, you will relish Krishna consciousness. You will be enthused. So it's a very important thing. So I hope that it makes sense to you, Mataji.
Yes, Prabhuji, I follow your instruction. Hari Hari, Gauranga, Dandvat.
Hare Krishna, Dandvat Pranam, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Premras Prabhu. This is Murali Govind. Thank you very much, Prabhu, for the wonderful class. Prabhuji, I have a very small question. Like you said in your lecture that okay, Prabhu, I just so you said that chanting minimum rounds is necessary. Beyond that, basing on the services you are rendering, you can do the chanting.
Yes.
So suppose, Prabhu, this chanting is also a kind of service to the Lord, no?
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. Okay. So see, okay, one can say that chanting is also service to the Lord. That's true. That's also, one of the definitions of chanting. In fact, now another definition of chanting as Prabhupada gave is that when we chant the holy name, what is the prayer that Prabhupada asks us to, while chanting the holy name, to offer to the Lord? And Prabhupada said that, "O Hara, O energy of the Lord, please engage me in Krishna's service." So one should be, see, it's very important to know what is the service, what is one service. Okay, if you have got instruction from Guru just to chant the holy name throughout the day, then that becomes a service for you. But if you have got an instruction from Guru to also do some service, which is practical service or preaching, then you have to also do that, because that becomes chanting. So you see, basically preaching, services, these are not different from chanting the holy name. As I said, that everything is ultimately connected to remembering Krishna, absorbing Krishna. Even the goal of chanting is to remember Krishna. If you keep chanting the holy name, but if you're not able to remember Krishna, what is the effect of chanting, right? So if so that's why, see, and that's why I said that if you are sufficiently advanced, then you can just chant the holy name. You can just sit and chant the holy name, provided Krishna has personally instructed you to chant the holy name, or the Guru has, and at the same time, the Krishna is also revealing to you through the holy name completely, through just the chanting of the holy names. Okay, but if Krishna is not revealing to you, if you are not able to understand what is my role, okay, even after chanting so many rounds, it's all mechanical ultimately. I'm not able to see the pastimes of Lord. I'm not able to remember the form and qualities of the Lord. So that means we have to take instructions from the Guru. So see, that's why Prabhupada, and I quoted right in the beginning, Prabhupada said, unless you hear and unless you take instruction from Guru, or you serve the instruction of Guru, your chanting cannot be pure. So this type of chanting, pure chanting, can only happen, it can only manifest, and Krishna can only reveal when you satisfy your Guru thoroughly.
Yes.
Okay. So see, ultimately, who is going to take us back to God in ISKCON? Srila Prabhupada. So we should know if Prabhupada is sufficiently pleased through our efforts in Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada, if you read his letters to his disciples, I have read all the letters of Prabhupada right from 65 to 77 twice. Okay. And I've read all Prabhupada books multiple times. Okay. So I'm just sharing my realization experience that Prabhupada actually wanted devotees to take responsibility and to preach Krishna consciousness. Okay. And that's like, as Vaisheshika Prabhu also says, book distribution is a heavy sadhana. So he's equating service with sadhana. He's not saying that book distribution is a service. Actually, he's saying that it is service, but it is also a heavy sadhana. Why? Because the heavy sadhana will actually, through that heavy sadhana, we will attain the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will take care of everything else. We don't have to worry about it. So see, so this is one aspect. Okay. The second aspect is that, as I said, Prabhu, how do you know that you have surrendered to Krishna? Because the goal of chanting is to surrender to Krishna. It's very interesting, Prabhuji. In one place, Prabhupada writes in, I think, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita Purport, Prabhupada says that actually Krishna, his real goal, his real intention is that all the devotees should surrender, or every living entity should surrender to him. But because this is not possible in Kali Yuga, that's why he's recommending in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to chant Hare Krishna constantly. And so what is the meaning of this? It means that chanting should also bring that attitude of surrender to the Lord and the devotees.
Yes, Prabhu.
Right? If you keep chanting the holy name, but if you do not surrender to your Guru and authority, then what is the effect of holy name? Krishna is not going to reveal to us, right? So it's a parallel process. Chanting, you can get taste in chanting, you can get attraction in chanting, attachment towards chanting only when you serve your Guru, you please your Guru sufficiently. So Guru and Krishna, these are simultaneous process. Prabhupada said many times. Implicit faith, yastadeva para bhakti, yatadeva tatha guru, tasatahi katyartha, prakashante mahatmana. Unless and until one has implicit faith in the spiritual master and the Lord, simultaneously, the purpose of the Vedas will not be revealed to such a person. So Guru and Krishna, Prabhupada writes in so many letters that this is a parallel track. You have to please Guru and you have to please Krishna simultaneously. Okay, so that's a very important concept. So I hope it makes sense, Prabhuji. Overall, if you see,
thank you so much.
See, we want to, Prabhuji. Chanting is so wonderful. We want to chant constantly, and there is nothing to stop us to chant the holy name constantly. And how is that possible? If we keep chanting the holy name in the mind, who is there to stop you? When you are serving, in fact, Jiva Goswami recommends in his Sandarbhas, he says that in Kali Yuga, each and every limb of bhakti should be assisted by chanting of the holy name, right? So chanting is actually the goal of every devotee, and that can happen by trying to increase our attachment towards the Lord. When we do this, then automatically we'll be able to remember Krishna and his pastimes. And so what is the meaning of that? That means we are chanting the holy name from within, right? So the best process for chanting, best process for remembering is not remembrance in itself, but it is chanting the holy name in Kali Yuga, as Sanatana Goswami describes, right? So devotees definitely can chant the holy name constantly, but make it an internal cultivation. You don't have to show to anyone how many rounds I have chanted. Whenever possible, for example, if you get some time, free time, once in a month or once in a while in festivals or in Namacharya Haridas Thakur's disappearance day, chant 64 rounds, 128 rounds, 192 rounds. No problem. But please don't make it, something which is, don't emphasize too much on this, because this is not the process that Prabhupada recommended in ISKCON. He has given us a parallel track. Sadhana and seva goes together, right? So even if you want to realize your stage, see, unless and until you come in contact with devotees, you deal with them, you will never understand what is your tolerance level, what stage you are at, right? So all these things actually we can clearly understand that these things should go simultaneously. I hope it makes sense, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu, thank you very much. And one more small question, Prabhu. Like you said that hearing personal Bhagavad and book Bhagavad. See, for me, actually, I feel that I'm not able to perceive much from reading the book rather than hearing. Hearing, I feel it is very, very soothing for the ears, and so much of insights goes into the heart also. Like reading on my own understanding, I'm facing sometimes some difficulty. I'm not able to perceive that particular concept as explained by the Prabhupada, even though it is very, very simple and easiest way. So this my desire to hear the lectures and pravachans of all devotees and Vaishnavas. That's better, or the reading only is the better one? How to balance, Prabhu?
Yeah, so as I said, Prabhuji, that ultimately the real Shravanam is hearing, because sound vibration, that's the process, the original process. But then in Kali Yuga, we require some form of recorded, system where we actually save things, right? And then we can also refer it to later. So now see, this is one aspect of reading. The other aspect is, as I said, that if you don't want to miss Prabhupada's ecstasy, and especially if you want to please Prabhupada. So see, you can just imagine how much pleasure it will give to Prabhupada even if you don't like to read, but if you take time out and if you read 15 minutes daily for Prabhupada's pleasure, that will also enhance your Krishna consciousness to a lot of degree, right? So we have to also think in terms of Guru's pleasure, not just whether it will be okay, whether I will like it or whether I am not able to do it certain things. But just because Prabhupada gave us, he has sacrificed his life for this. That's why I think it also, at least for me, I do think like this, that Prabhupada, in order to give something back to Prabhupada, we have to take time out and read his books. And then I think over a period of time you will develop the taste also. So I also started with small books of Prabhupada, and I was reading maybe around 15 minutes every day. Now there is a state where I'm able to read almost 1.5 hours to 2 hours every day.
Oh,
okay. and not just Prabhupada books, but I have read most of the prominent works of all the acharyas. Okay, so that everything will happen gradually, Prabhuji. You just focus on serving your Guru, follow the process that Prabhupada has given. Take some austerity in the beginning, because that's how we shift from Vaidhi to Raganuga, from the rules and regulation to spontaneous. Certain things might be austerity, like for example, if we go to school and college, then there are certain subjects we don't like at all, but in order to pass the exam, somehow we have to force ourselves to actually study and read it, right, and give exam. So similarly, if we just sacrifice certain things that we like, certain things we don't like, just as a pleasure to the Guru, you can just imagine how much mercy you'll get from the Lord, right? So yeah, so but yeah, essentially, if you say, if a devotee is presenting the conclusion of Shastras, then there is no need to read the books. Okay, and the conclusion of Shastra is present in so many literatures. It's not just and Prabhupada, what he did, he's given the essence of all the Acharya's teachings in his books, and he's given everything that you require to go back to Godhead. So right. Sambandha, Abhiday, Prayojan, all these three things are there in Prabhupada books. You don't have to, if you don't have time to read other books, just these 4 books of Prabhupada. Nectar of Devotion, Bhagavad Gita, Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Prabhupada did not even mention Chaitanya Charitamrita. Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and Srimad Bhagavatam. If you can just read these 4 books again and again, if you don't have appetite to read other books, then just these 4 books and understand it, obviously, that's the most important thing. Then it's sufficient to take you back home, back to Godhead.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your wonderful comments.
I feel it is one of the instructions by our Srila Prabhupada to read his books. So that spiritual
Exactly.
will always be there with me.
Exactly. See, that's a very important point that you just shared, because see, Prabhupada didn't say just chant the holy name, everything will be done. And see, the point is that we see that in Prabhupada's life, Prabhupada made that sacrifice. Prabhupada wrote books. He spent maximum amount of time in his books. So if chanting the holy name was the only thing, why did he write books?
Yes, sir.
Right? So there are so many purports by Prabhupada where he says that, as I've quoted earlier, many references of Srimad Bhagavatam from his lecture, but many places where he says that without proper hearing from Guru and without following instruction of Guru, it's not possible to advance in spiritual life. So we have to focus on these things. We cannot just focus on one thing. And okay, now someone may question this, that according to the Bhagavatam, it says that out of these now with the process, even if you perfect in one, that is sufficient. But Srila Rupa Goswami comments, the Acharyas also, Vishwanath Thakur and Jiva Goswami in the Bhakti Samritindu, they say that what is the meaning of this? It means that it does not mean that you stop hearing from Guru. It does not mean that you neglect other limbs of bhakti. It means that this particular one limb becomes the most prominent limb. For example, as I shared, the example of a pujari. Prabhupada said that if a pujari worships the deities perfectly, then he will just go back to God. But a pujari has to attain knowledge from Guru. He has to understand what are the offenses to the deity form of the Lord, right? By seva aparad. And then he has to also follow the process. He has to learn how to worship the deity. He has to also learn how to deal with Vaishnavas. Then it's a Vaishnava aparad if you don't deal properly. So he's also doing Sravanam, and then he's also hearing about pastimes of Krishna, right? So Sravanam and Kirtanam and Smaranam, these are the most fundamental elements of any process of bhakti. It's just that after a period of time, after you sufficiently hear, you attain perfection, then you only focus on a particular limb of bhakti, because that's your main attraction towards the Lord, like that.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji.
I felt I am in Radha Gopinath Mandir today.
Okay. Anyways, I am glad to hear that.
Prabhu, very nicely.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Please keep me in your prayers.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dandavat pranam. Guru Maharaj ki jai. Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai Dandavat pranam. Okay, so there are some, I think in the chat box, some comments are there, or question is there. I don't know if I want to questions, Madhuri. So should I?
Yes, Prabhu, you can address the chat box questions.
Okay, so I think first one is just a comment. Okay. Kanai Thakur was a brahmachari connected to Jew temple and camp. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Prita Madhuri. Some way, at least I will be remembered by devotees. So, okay. Also, hearing narration of Prabhupada's books helps with both VFM and hearing simultaneously. Yes, of course. Wonderful. Okay. Could you please elaborate more on the subtle body which has hands and legs, like gross body, as you mentioned in your lecture? And do we also give up our subtle body before entering the spiritual world? Yes, of course. So see, subtle body has all these features or these senses. It's obvious, because whether you go to hellish planet or so you have to carry something with you, right? So then even the subtle body, if it is moving from one place to another place, it needs all these senses to understand, to percept, okay, to perceive certain things. So this is what the Shastra also says, that the subtle body has all these senses, but these are subtle senses. We cannot see them. We cannot see mind, intelligence, ego. At the same time, we can also not see all these subtle senses. But the gross senses are there to externally present, which can be easily readable and perceivable in this material world. So, yeah, so when one goes to the spiritual world, one will definitely give up the subtle body also, and only the Atma will remain. And before going to spiritual world, the Atma will attain its Swarupa. Okay, so that Swarupa will expand. So whether you are a coward boy, coward girl, depending on that, that form you will take in the spiritual world. So see, there is no Paramatma also in the spiritual world. Okay, Paramatma is the feature, is the incarnation of Lord in the material world. It does not exist in the spiritual world. Why? Because the goal of Paramatma, the main aim of Paramatma is to connect us with the Lord. So basically, Paramatma is a Guru Tattva, and you don't require Guru in the spiritual world because you're already perfected. Okay, so there is no subtle body and there is no Paramatma also in the spiritual world. These are the Purusha avatars who are there in the spiritual world: Shirodakshai Vishnu, Garbhodakshai Vishnu, and Mahavishnu, Karonadakshai Vishnu. They are the Purusha avatars, which means they are only connected to the material world. They are not in the spiritual world. So everything in the spiritual world is communicated by the Yogmaya potency of the Supreme Lord. There is no need for Paramatma. So in the material world, the Paramatma is inspiring us from within, each and every living entity. Okay, whether depending on their desires, material desires, spiritual desires. But in the spiritual world, because everything is spiritual, so it is completely directly arranged by the transcendental arrangement of Krishna's Yogmaya potency. So is that okay? Rashmi Mataji. Okay. Okay, all right. Any more questions?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, all good to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for your association and your time. You have very busy schedule, but still you accept our request and you give the class for us. Very, very nice and inspiring, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mataji, for giving me opportunity. I am always anchoring for the Association of Devotees, and so definitely whatever you said, actually, I am way far from the standard, and it's an opportunity for me to associate with devotees and to serve in some way. Thank you so much for giving me that opportunity, Mataji.
Thank you.
Anybody has any more questions for Prabhuji before we wrap up the class? No, so thank you so much, Prabhuji, once again for such a wonderful class today. We are very, very grateful to you and really look forward to having your association again in future. With that, we would like to wrap up the call.
Thank you so much, Mataji, for having me, and I would look forward to get Association of Devotees. So thank you so much. Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna. Dandavat pranam to everyone. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhu vayavacha. Kirtanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Thank you so much, all the devotees.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Thank
So much,
you.
Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare
Dandavat Pranam. Thank you for the wonderful class. Thank you for your association. Hare
Dandavat
Krishna.
Pranam, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Dandavat pranam. Thank you so much, each and every devotee. Pay obeisances to each and every devotee. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.